The Maplewood nursing home sat at the edge of town like an old photograph left too long in the sun. Edges frayed, colors faded. From the outside, it was calm, almost serene, a two-story building nestled among oaks that rattled in the night wind. But calm was often just a mask. Sheriff's Deputy Daniel Mercer learned that the hard way, standing in the damp October night, while his K9, Rook, pawed furiously at a basement door no one seemed to know existed. Behind that door lay the truth Maplewood had buried for decades, a truth the town wasn't ready to face. If you like stories that unearth secrets hidden in plain sight, stay close. There's more ahead. The call came in at 8:12 p.m. Disturbance at Maplewood, the dispatcher said through static. Staff report shouting in the East Wing. Elderly male combative. Daniel cradled the mic. On my way. Rook, his German shepherd partner, lifted his head from the passenger seat, amber eyes glowing in the patrol car's dashboard light. Rain streaked the windshield in silver threads as Daniel pulled onto the lonely road that led out of Hollow Creek Center. Maplewood wasn't new to calls. Sometimes residents wandered. Sometimes staff lost patience. But there was something about the dispatcher's voice tonight, tight, uncertain, that gnawed at him. By the time Daniel turned into the cracked asphalt lot, the rain had slowed to a mist. Maplewood loomed ahead, its yellowing brick facade lit by only a handful of flickering lamps. Curtains sagged in the windows, and the front doors groaned when he pushed them open. Inside smelled of bleach and something faintly sour, like milk left too long in the sun. A nurse in pale scrubs hurried over, wringing her hands. Her badge read Clara. "Thank God you're here," she whispered. "It's Mr. Wilcox again." He said someone was in his room. He started screaming. He tried to pull the fire alarm. "Is he violent?" Daniel asked. Clara hesitated. "Not exactly. Just frightened. And loud. He's in room 14. Daniel nodded. Rook at his side, claws ticking against linoleum. They found Mr. Wilcox sitting at the edge of his bed, chest heaving, a thin hospital blanket bunched in his fists. His hair was white wisps, his eyes watery blue, wild and unblinking. "They were in here," he rasped. "A man, tall, no face." He went through the wall. Clara forced a smile. "You see? Delusions again." Daniel crouched low, his voice steady. "Mr. Wilcox, I need you to tell me slowly. What did you see?" The old man leaned forward, his bony hand gripping Daniel's sleeve with surprising strength. "The basement," he whispered, breath sour with fear. "He came from the basement. Don't go there." Before Daniel could ask more, Wilcox sagged back, trembling, eyes rolling with exhaustion. Clara pressed her lips tight. "He says things like that often. Basement, shadows, doors that aren't there. It's part of his decline." Daniel studied her. Too quick, too rehearsed. Rook's ears twitched. The shepherd turned, nose working the air, and tugged toward the hall. "Let me check," Daniel said. Clara hesitated. "It's late. Residents are sleeping. I won't wake anyone." His tone left no room for argument. They walked the East Wing corridor, lights buzzing overhead. Paint peeled where moisture crept through the roof. The hall narrowed, leading to a service door half hidden behind stacked supply carts. Rook stopped, stiffened, then whined low in his throat. Daniel moved the carts aside. The door was heavy steel, paint chipped, handle rusted. No sign it had been used in years. Yet the lock shone new, the kind bought at any hardware store last month. "Maintenance storage." Clara offered too quickly. "Always been here." Daniel tried the knob. Locked. He glanced at Clara. "You have the key?" She swallowed. "No, that isn't ours. Must belong to Mr. Hanley, our director." Rook pawed at the seam, nails scraping metal, tail rigid. He growled deep in his chest. Daniel's instincts tightened. Dogs didn't growl at empty closets. He stepped back, listening. Somewhere beyond that steel door, something moved. A faint scrape, then silence. The night dragged deeper into the bones of Maplewood. Daniel filled out a perfunctory incident report for Wilcox, but his thoughts stayed on that door. When he left, Clara wouldn't meet his eyes. Rain picked up again as Daniel pulled into his driveway. headlights cutting across the small Clabber house that had been too empty since his divorce. He let Rook out, the shepherd trotting across wet grass, then sat in the driver's seat longer than necessary. He thought about Wilcox's words, about Clara's quick denial, about that new lock, and about the sound, real, undeniable, behind that door. The next morning, Daniel stopped by the diner on Main, where Sheriff Holt nursed coffee, and a crossword at the corner booth. The sheriff was broad, 50-something, with thinning hair and the quiet exhaustion of a man who'd buried more secrets than he'd solved. "You look like hell," Holt muttered as Daniel slid in. "Thanks." Daniel stirred his coffee. "You ever been down in Maplewood's basement?" The sheriff's eyes flicked up, sharp. "Why?" "There's a locked door no one admits exists. New lock. My dog went crazy at it." Holt chewed his cheek. Maplewood's old. They bricked over sections. Sealed some off. Not everything has to be sinister. Then why the fresh lock? The sheriff leaned closer. "You want advice? Let it go. That place is city run. Not our business unless someone's hurt." Daniel stared. "Wilcox said someone came from down there. A man without a face. That old coot's been saying crazy things for years." Holt's tone hardened. "Drop it, Mercer. That's an order." Back at the station, Daniel sat in silence. Orders were orders, but Rook kept pacing, restless. And Daniel couldn't shake the sound of that scrape. That night, unable to resist, he drove back to Maplewood. The parking lot was nearly empty. One flickering lamp buzzed against the dark. Clara wasn't at the desk. Instead, a janitor mopped near the doors, eyes down, radio humming faintly. Daniel moved quietly, Rook at his side. He knew he shouldn't be here, not without a warrant, not without Holt's approval. But curiosity mixed with dread pulled stronger than caution. The east wing was darker than before. He reached the steel door. His flashlight beam cut across it. Rook bristled, growling low. Daniel pressed his ear to the cold metal. At first, nothing. Then 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate. His heart lurched. He stumbled back, flashlight beam shaking across the wall. Rook barked, claws raking the door, desperate to dig through. And from behind the steel came a whisper. So faint, Daniel almost thought it was in his head. The voice of a child. The whisper clung to Daniel long after it faded. He stood frozen in the east wing corridor, Rook straining at the leash, claws screeching against the door's steel surface. The sheriff's order to leave it alone rattled in his head, but so did the unmistakable sound of a child's plea. Nursing homes didn't house children. Daniel's pulse hammered. He checked the hallway. Empty. The only light came from the buzzing fluorescent overhead, casting sickly shadows. He whispered to his K9, "Easy, boy. Easy." Rook's growl faded into a tense whine, but his eyes never left the door. Daniel tried the knob again. Still locked. He pressed his shoulder to the cold metal, listening. Silence now, but he knew what he'd heard, and he couldn't let it go. The next morning, Daniel's stomach knotted tighter when Holt summoned him to the sheriff's office. The blinds were drawn, the air stale with old coffee. "You went back to Maplewood last night," Holt said flatly, not asking but stating. Daniel stiffened. "I couldn't sleep." "Aye." "You disobeyed an order." Holt leaned forward. His gaze wasn't anger so much as weary warning. "That place is not ours to poke around. If you stir trouble, you'll find yourself benched. Do you understand me?" Daniel bit back his frustration. "With respect, Sheriff, there's something wrong there. Someone was behind that locked door. I heard." Holt slammed a palm on the desk. "Enough. Drop it, Mercer. I won't tell you again." Daniel swallowed his words, nodding once, but inside defiance rooted deep. By evening, Daniel was parked across from Maplewood. Engine off, lights out. Rook sat alert in the passenger seat, ears flicking with every night sound. The nursing home's windows glowed faintly, curtains drawn. A thin fog crept from the surrounding woods, swallowing the lot. At 9:14 p.m., Daniel saw movement. Clara slipping out the side entrance, a key ring in her hand. She glanced over her shoulder before hurrying toward a car parked away from the lamps. Daniel's instincts flared. He waited until her car pulled out, then moved. Inside, the lobby was dark except for a lamp at the desk. The janitor dozed in a chair, radio low. Daniel moved down the corridor. Every step calculated. The east wing felt colder than the rest of the building, as if the air came from underground. He reached the steel door. This time, he was ready. He pulled a thin pry bar from his jacket. Illegal, reckless, but necessary. Rook pressed close, tense. Daniel wedged the bar into the lock seam and leaned. Metal shrieked. Sweat dampened his back. With a final grunt, the lock snapped. The door creaked open. A rush of stale air poured out. Damp, earthy, tinged with mold. The beam of his flashlight caught descending concrete steps. "Stay close," Daniel whispered to Rook. They descended. The basement was larger than he expected, sprawling beneath Maplewood like a forgotten root system. The walls were unfinished stone, slick with moisture. Rusted pipes snaked along the ceiling. Rook sniffed ahead, leading him down a narrow hall. The further they went, the stronger the smell, old wood, rust, and something faintly metallic. Then Daniel's light landed on a door. Wooden this time, but reinforced with iron bands. Carved into the surface were faint scratches, long, desperate gouges. Rook barked once, sharp and urgent. Daniel gripped the handle. It turned easily. The door groaned open. Inside was a small room, low ceiling, bare stone walls. Against one wall, an iron-framed bed sat, mattress-stained, restraints dangling from the sides. Daniel's stomach clenched. On the far side stood shelves stacked with yellowing folders. Dust blanketed them, but some had been disturbed recently. He pulled one down. The cover read, "Patient File, Subject 7. Flipping it open, he found black and white photos of children, thin, pale, eyes hollow. Each page listed behavioral notes. Tests conducted. Results inconclusive. Dates ran from the 1960s through the 1980s. Daniel's throat tightened. Maplewood hadn't always been a nursing home. It had been something else. He turned another page until he froze. A photo of a boy, no older than 12. His face blurred as though overexposed, but his body strapped to the same iron bed in this very room. Below, in typed text, "Experiment. Sensory deprivation. Subject non-responsive. Termination recommended." Rook whined, pawing at the floor. Daniel shone his light downward. Scratched into the stone at his feet, barely visible, were words. "Still here. Still waiting." A cold shiver raked his spine. Then the sound came again. A whisper. "Help." This time, clearer, from deeper in the basement. Daniel followed, heart pounding. The hallway twisted, branching into rooms. Storage piled with broken furniture, old wheelchairs, mildewed files. But always the voice pulled him forward. At last, he came to a heavy iron door, padlocked. The whisper drifted from within. He raised the pry bar again, forcing it into the lock. His muscles strained. Metal bent. At last, the lock snapped. He yanked the door open. The flashlight beam cut across the room and froze. Inside, sitting on the floor against the far wall, was Clara. Her scrubs were smeared with dust, her face streaked with tears. Her eyes widened in the light. "Deputy, no, you can't be here." Daniel's voice was sharp. "What the hell is this place?" Clara shook her head violently. "You don't understand. If you keep going, you'll kill us all." Rook barked, pacing. Daniel stepped inside, gripping her arm. "Who's down here, Clara? Who needs help?" She tried to pull away, panic in her eyes. "They're not children anymore. You don't save them. You contain them." Daniel's blood ran cold. "Them?" Her gaze flicked to the dark corner of the room. Daniel swung his light. For a heartbeat, he thought it was a shadow. Then it moved. A figure crouched there, small, skeletal, skin pale and stretched thin. Its eyes reflected the beam, wide and glassy. Its mouth hung open in a silent scream. Daniel staggered back, while rising. The figure twitched, then scuttled into the darkness faster than any human should. Rook lunged, barking furiously. Clara screamed, "Shut the door! Now!" Daniel slammed the door as the thing hurled itself at the threshold, body thudding against iron. The frame shuddered. Rook snarled, teeth bared, while Clara clawed at the deputy's sleeve. "You don't get it," she sobbed. "They were experiments, left here when the funding ended. They survived. They changed." Daniel's chest heaved. "And you locked them down here?" Clara's face twisted. "What else could we do? You think the sheriff doesn't know? This whole town lives because we keep them contained." The banging at the door grew louder. Metal groaned. Daniel grabbed her collar. "How many?" Her lips trembled. 3. No, 4. The air seemed to collapse around him. For things like that, living under the nursing home. And the lock on the first door had been broken once already. As they climbed the stairs, the building above groaned with unnatural sounds. Scrapes, knocks, whispers threading through the walls. Rook pressed against Daniel, ears back, every hair raised. Clara's voice shook. It wasn't supposed to spread. We had it under control. Daniel glanced at her, fury burning. "You lied to everyone. You kept them locked in cages." "They're not human anymore," she snapped and sagged, whispering. "But they remember. That's the worst part. They remember being children." They reached the corridor, breathing hard. Daniel shoved the steel door shut behind them, sliding the broken lock in place. It wouldn't hold. Rook's head jerked suddenly, ears snapping toward the west wing. His growl rumbled. Daniel froze. From the opposite hallway came the sound of footsteps, slow, dragging, and a child's voice, high and fragile, floating through the dark. "Deputy?" The whisper stretched. "Play with us." The west wing lay in silence, every door closed, every curtain drawn. Daniel's flashlight carved a thin line across peeling wallpaper and water-stained ceiling tiles. Rook bristled, head low, teeth bared. The voice came again, nearer this time. "Deputy?" It wasn't just one voice anymore. A chorus, soft, broken, childlike, drifted down the hall as if carried on the breath of the building itself. Clara clung to his sleeve. "Don't answer them. If you answer, they'll know you here." Daniel's jaw clenched. "They already know." The dragging steps grew louder. At the far end of the hall, a shadow swayed, small and thin. Then another, 2 silhouettes side by side. They didn't walk so much as glide, feet scraping across tile. Daniel raised his gun. "Stay back." The figures halted. For a moment, nothing moved. Then, in perfect unison, their heads tilted sideways, necks bending too far. Rook lunged forward, snarling, dragging Daniel's step. Clara whimpered. "We can't fight them. We contain them." The figures took another step forward. And this time, the dim glow of the emergency exit sign lit their faces. Children's faces, yet wrong. Skin paper-thin, stretched tight. Eyes wide, glistening, pupils pinpricks. Mouth slack, as though frozen mid-scream. Their clothes were tatters of hospital gowns, mottled with old stains. Daniel's stomach turned. He tightened his grip on the Glock. But then he saw it, behind their eyes. A flicker, a child's fear. "Please," one whispered. "It hurts." His hand trembled. These weren't monsters. They'd been made. Clara yanked at his arm. "Shoot. They're not children anymore." Daniel hesitated too long. The figures lunged. Chaos. Rook leapt, teeth flashing, knocking one of the pale children back. It shrieked, not like a child, but like tearing metal, and clawed at the dog's fur. Daniel fired. The shot exploded through the hall, plastered, dust raining. The bullet struck, but the thing barely slowed, staggering back, then snapping its head toward him with inhuman speed. Clara bolted. Her footsteps slapped the linoleum as she fled toward the stairwell. "Clara!" Daniel roared. Too late. The second figure darted after her, impossibly fast, vanishing into the shadows of the west wing. Her scream echoed once, then cut short. Rook snarled, pinning the first creature down. Its hands clawed, scratching deep furrows in tile. Daniel fired again, once, twice, until at last it went still, chest heaving, a whimper escaping its lips. It looked at him, eyes suddenly lucid, human for a heartbeat. "Don't leave us," it whispered before the light drained away. Daniel staggered back, chest tight, bow rising. Rook whined softly, muzzle bloody. Jesus Christ, Daniel muttered. He moved through the west wing, gun raised, flashlight cutting arcs across sagging wallpaper. The building groaned as though alive, every sound amplified by silence. Clara's trail wasn't hard to follow. Scuffs of shoes against the floor, a smear of blood along the wall. He found her at last in the supply room, crumpled against the door, breathing in ragged gasps. Her eyes locked on his. "They'll never stop," she whispered. "Not until the building comes down." Daniel knelt, checking the shallow gash across her shoulder. Not fatal. Yet terror had hollowed her out more than the wound. "You knew," he said bitterly. "You all knew." Her lips trembled. "We didn't make them. We inherited them. The people before us. They left Maplewood with its history buried. We just tried to manage it. You locked them away like animals. What would you have done, deputy? Call the state? Tell Hollow Creek, their quiet little town, was built on stolen children and failed experiments? No one would believe you. And if they did, they'd burn this town to the ground." Her words cut, because deep down, Daniel knew she was right. Truth destroyed as often as it saved. But then came the sound. From below. The iron door in the basement, the one he hadn't opened. The fourth child. The banging started again, harder, faster. The walls rattled, pipes clanging in protest. Clara's eyes went wide. "It's awake." They barely made it back to the east wing before the lights flickered and died, plunging the halls into darkness. Emergency red glow bathed the corridors, turning every corner into blood. Rook froze, ears pricked, a growl rumbling deep. Then came the footsteps. Heavy, uneven, not small, not childlike. The fourth one. Daniel's throat tightened. He raised his gun, flashlight trembling. The beam caught movement at the end of the hall. A figure massive compared to the others, shoulders hunched, limbs too long. Its head dragged low, face hidden. Clara sobbed. "We never could restrain that one. We only kept it sleeping." The thing raised its head. And Daniel understood why Wilcox had called a man with no face, where eyes and mouth should have been with smooth flesh, stretched taut like wax melted over bone. Only faint impressions hinted at features. It turned toward him, sensing without seeing. It let out a low, guttural moan that shook the walls. Rook barked furious, but Daniel's hand shook. How do you shoot something that had once been a boy, once human, before someone carved his future away? The faceless figure lunged. The fight was frantic. Daniel fired. Shots sparking off stone, tearing into creature's flesh, but barely slowed, swiping with hands that felt more like claws. Rook darted in, biting, retreating, but was thrown against the wall with a yelp. Clara screamed, scrambling for the stairwell. The faceless one turned toward her. Daniel fired again, emptying the clip, desperation fueling him. The thing staggered, then collapsed to its knees, wheezing, a horrible wet rattle. For a moment, silence. Then it lifted its head, and though it had no mouth, Daniel heard it clear in his bones in his skull. A child's voice. "Please, let me go." Daniel froze. Not a monster, a prisoner. Rook limped back to his side, growling low but waiting. The building groaned around them, as if Maplewood itself was listening. Daniel lowered the gun. He approached slowly, heart hammering, and placed a hand, trembling, on the thing's shoulder. The flesh was cold, clammy, trembling under his touch. "You're free," Daniel whispered. "It's over." The figure shuddered. For a moment, Daniel thought he saw the faint outline of a boy beneath the ruin. A boy stolen decades ago. Then, with a final rattling breath, it slumped forward and was still. Clara sobbed quietly against the wall, face buried in her hands. "They'll blame us," she whispered. "The town. The sheriff. They'll say we killed them." Daniel holstered the gun, every muscle heavy. "No, we tell the truth. No more lies." She lifted her face, streaked with tears. "The truth won't save anyone." He looked down at the faceless body, then at the ruined hall. Maybe not, but it might give them peace. By dawn, Maplewood was cordoned off, Deputies swarming the grounds. Sheriff Holt stood stiffly by the patrol cars, jaw clenched, refusing to look Daniel in the eye. Reports would be written. Files would vanish. Explanations would be crafted that left the truth buried once again. But Daniel knew. Clara knew. And the walls of Maplewood knew. Later, standing outside as the sun bled gold across the fog, Daniel let Rook lean against his leg. The shepherd trembling but alive. The town would go on, pretending nothing had happened. Pretending Maplewood was just another nursing home with peeling paint and weary staff. But Daniel would never forget the whispers in the dark, the children who had never grown old, the faces that had been taken. He whispered to no one in particular, voice low, carried on the wind, "I'm sorry." And in the stillness that followed, he swore he heard, just once, the sound of children laughing. Soft, free, gone.